All right, so I shared a syllabus with all you guys via Google Drive. So you can access the syllabus that I shared with you in two different ways. One, you should have gotten an email notification that a document was shared with you, and you can access that document through your Gmail account, or you can go to your Google Drive and go to the Shared with Me tab of your Google Drive, and you will find any documents that have been shared with you in that tab. So I shared it with you, and you can all see it, and you all have access to it. Anyone who does not, for whatever reason, have access to it, please make sure you let me know, and I will make sure you do get access to it. So I'm going to have the syllabus up at the same time as the presentation, and I will kind of toggle back and forth between them to make sure that we kind of all follow what's going on. So we begin. All right. Before we start getting into anything, really, we need to just make sure we all are on the same page as far as how do we conduct ourselves in these Google Meets. This doesn't seem to be an issue for anyone, but in the interest of posterity, we'll at least formalize this and kind of lay out some ground rules and some expectations. Number one being be on time. The same way you would be in the classroom when the bell rings, you should be in the Google Meet when the class period starts. I understand there's no transition time. I'm going to give you a 1 or 2 minute grace period to make sure that you're able to get over here and get logged in. It's not like, 15 seconds into class, I'm marking the absence off. Like, that's not how it works. But we need to use every minute available to us, so make sure you guys are on time. Mute your microphone unless you need to speak. So I may ask you for some input or ask your opinion. Unmute yourself and speak, of course. But other than that, all right. If you have questions along the way, you can type them right in the chat box if they're real quick, and I will answer them. Or you can just type, I have a question in the chat box, and I will prompt you. You can unmute yourself. You can ask your question. We can go from there. Remain in your seat until directed to leave by the teacher. If you have to go to the bathroom or whatever, take a break for whatever reason, just type BRB in the chat box. This way I know you're not available to speak. You know what I mean? If we're going back and forth. When you come back, type I'm back. This way I know. The same way you wouldn't just get up and walk out of a classroom without saying anything to your teacher is the same way that you should just kind of try to let everyone know what you're doing, and I will do the same. I don't plan on ever typing be right back, but in the event that I do, I'll certainly let you know that I'm stepping out for a second. So if you could just all do the same, I'd appreciate it. And the last item here, and probably the most important, is communication. You absolutely must communicate with me, and I with you. Okay? Any issues that you're having, any difficulties that you're having, technical issues, family problems, missing work, I don't understand this assignment, I need help with this task, I need more time, I can't do this in time, whatever. This is why I wasn't in class. Whatever it is, just make sure you communicate with me. Write me an email, tell me what's going on. Communication can fix every problem that we could possibly have. You just have to make sure you communicate with me. All right, I'm going to keep it moving. All right, so as far as the breakdown of the syllabus goes, the first thing that we're going to talk about is what you need to have. You need to have a notebook. Yes, the paper kind with something to write with. Mr. I'm on a computer, why do I need a notebook? Well, we don't know when we're going to kind of transition back into the physical classroom. And when we do, you're going to need a notebook. And there will be assignments that come up where I ask you to look back into your notes in previous units or previous lessons. And if you don't have that stuff readily available, that could be a problem. So we need to be keeping notes somewhere, preferably a notebook. Look, can you type up notes in a Google Doc and then print them out when you need them? Sure, I guess. But then when we go back live, you're going to have a notebook, and then you're going to have these Google Docs. You're going to have stuff in two different places, and it's going to get ugly quick. So my advice to you would just be to start with a notebook. This way you don't ever have to change your program. Okay? So get a notebook, get something to write with for any notes that we take, and there will be notes. So, we need to make sure, that we have that. Some of you guys have had me for Global 1. You know the deal already, all right? So make sure we have notes. So the other thing, if we just take a look at the syllabus, how this stuff kind of plays out in the syllabus, intro, great, welcome. Love to have you. Objectives and skills. What are we trying to do? Learn history, argue with each other, make connections, past, present, and future, learn how to cite document evidence, debate, etc. You can look through this at your leisure. I shared it with all of you. So everyday materials, virtual learning. So we just went over, you need a notebook, you need a Chromebook or other means of internet access. Okay, great. So now we're going to start talking about the grading system. The grading system is here. 65% classwork. So the bulk of your average is made up of the work you do in, the classwork. 20% for assessments, and we'll go over that in a minute, and 15% for participation. So what exactly all three of those things? Okay, so as far as the grading goes, we're going to use the 0 to 4 scale that was introduced at the end of last year. So once we went in the lockdown, they said, forget your 0 to 100 scale, you're going to use your 0 to 4 scale. So we're going to use that to begin, because that's what they're going to make us use virtually. So how are we going to use that scale? Well, there's 3 different grading categories, like we said. There's participation, classwork, and writing assignments. Participation, you will get 1 participation grade per week. As long as you are on time, you follow the rules, what few there are, kind of adhere to our protocols and procedures, and engage in the work we are doing, it's an easy 4. I am looking to give you all 4 points every time. So just give me a reason to. Just follow these simple things. It's an easy 4. Classwork, we're going to apply the 0 to 4 scale to the classwork you do also. The thing I could say about classwork is that, and people who've had me before know this, it's really about effort more so than perfection. So as long as you're putting genuine effort in, you're good. You're attempting all the tasks within an assignment, you're good. If you answer in complete sentences, you're good. It's a 4. You know what I mean? I don't care if you're wrong, whatever. Just make sure you're putting the effort in. How does that look in the syllabus? How specifically, what do you have to do on classwork to get a 4? Well, that's laid out here. Okay. So when you guys take a look at the syllabus, pay attention to this. This is how the 0 to 4 scale applies to both classwork and participation. Okay. So what do you have to do to get a 4 in your classwork? Well, the student has attempted all questions and or portions of the task assigned. Any short answer questions are answered in complete sentences and fully address the entire prompt and contain sufficient detail to answer adequately. That's just a bunch of fancy talk for answer the question, use a complete sentence. That's it. Okay? As long as you do all of that, you'll get a 4. Okay? You can read through this at your leisure. My advice to you would be just to make sure you pay attention to the words. Most, and, or, but. All those words are very important to understand what the indicator is for each trait and each score. So if you have questions about any of this, you need to email me, okay? You need to ask, hey, what does it mean when you say blankety blank and I'll get a 3, okay? You need to ask so that you understand. Rubrics are like the blueprints for your house. You need the blueprints before you start. So I'm giving you the rubrics now so that you have the blueprint before we start working. So you understand, before you even hand it in what you're going to get, okay? Because you know how to apply the rubric. And that's the ultimate goal. If you guys can, use this rubric and all of these rubrics as a blueprint to inform your work, it will lead to success. And that's the general idea. So if you have questions about how the scale is applied to each grading category, direct your attention here. How is it going to, be reflected in writing assignments? Well, writing assignments, you're going to get a unique rubric for every writing assignment. So the rubrics for each writing assignment are going to be specifically tailor-made for that specific task. So no single rubric will apply to all writing assignments. They will all get their own rubric. And you will always be provided with the rubric for any writing assignment when the task is introduced. I'm not going to ask you to do 90% of the work and then say, oh, by the way, here's the rubric. That's like if we're using the analogy with blueprints and building a house. You don't build 90% of the house and then look at the blueprints. You kind of need them when you begin. So I will always provide them when we begin. Okay. So writing assignments. Uh, those of you who have had me know how we do this already. All of our assessments are going to be writing assignments, and here's how I deal with writing assignments. We will devote a lot of class time to those writing assignments. Some teachers, assign you an essay and say, "Okay, it's due in a week. See ya." And that's the last class time you spend talking about it. I'm not a believer in that. So in most cases, we will devote large chunks of class time to the introduction, the breaking down of a task, the planning, the drafting, the organizing, and the final construction of writing assignments. There will be class time devoted to all those steps. Okay. You'll have the opportunity to plan, write, and receive feedback on your written work. And the idea here is that if we use our class time efficiently, that is the case. If we make inefficient use of our class time, you'll have more to do outside of our scheduled time than you would like. As far as using our time efficiently is concerned, that's kind of my problem. I have to keep the train on time here, but there will be times where you have to kind of help with that task also. So as long as we are using our time efficiently, it's easier. Once we go back live, it's easier to get, once we're live in the classroom, sometimes students tend to get off track. They don't make efficient use of the class time. So that's really what I'm talking about when I say we need to make efficient use of our class time. And like I said, we will use the 0 to 4 scale for the written work, and the 0 to 4 is how it applies to each task will be specific to that task, and I will make you aware of that. All right, let's talk about plagiarism for just a minute. Plagiarism essentially is presenting someone else's work or something else's work as your own. That's not what we're looking for. I learned pretty quickly last year, once we went into virtual learning, that a lot of students were just copying and pasting stuff from sources right into worksheets, and literally not like using one keystroke of original, thought. And that's not what we're looking for. Okay, so look, there's a lot of times where I'm like, okay, read this thing over here and answer these questions about it on the worksheet. That doesn't mean copy and paste from one document into the worksheet. Read it, paraphrase what you're reading and how you want to answer, and then you could type your answer that way. Don't just copy and paste or type word for word what you read elsewhere. A lot of the questions also, there's always like questions that ask your opinion about stuff. So there's a lot of questions that will begin with the phrase "in your opinion." You can't really plagiarize an "in your opinion" question. It's your opinion. There's no wrong answer. So I encourage you to please just make sure that you are always doing your own work. This counts for essays also. Cite your sources for document evidence, and make sure nothing's borrowed. Okay. Let's see what else. All right. Everything is temporary. I'm new at this, and I will make mistakes. I won't be perfect. Please don't expect me to be, and I don't expect all of you to be perfect either. So we will learn together. The important thing to know is that, all the stuff we just talked about, this all applies to virtual learning. Okay? If and when we go back into the classroom live, the syllabus will change. The expectations will change. The grading system might change. The protocols, procedures, routines may change. Okay? If and when they do change, I will make you aware. When we go back live to in-person learning, I plan on providing you with a brand new syllabus that reflects all the changes that will happen, and that is something that we will go over together. So make sure that everyone kind of understands. As long as we communicate and we be transparent with each other about what we're doing and why we're doing it, everything will be fine. I will always do my best to try to keep you guys informed on what the policies are. You can't live under a government if you don't know what their rules are. All right, I'm going to pause this real quick.